John Lilly once put it this way: there are no limits at all to the human mind whatsoever, except those we impose on ourselves because of our beliefs. And those limits are also beliefs to be transcended. And that's a view that suggests that the possibilities of human transformation are virtually infinite. And we have no way of knowing the outer horizon of what it means to be human.
And really, to understand all this, everything, you have to go very, very deep into a study of history, consciousness, neurophysiology, everything. You have to be the supreme eclectic type of leaning, and you really have to be wanting to know who you are and what everything's about.
And the thing that you'll find when you go to sacred sites, if you're very humble about it, is that you are on a personal journey, and the sacred site will respond to you in a way that is appropriate only to you. The information is always what you are searching for. And it's the intent you give that energy that defines whether it is used for right action or not. And it is inside these sacred spaces that you will be reminded that you are a god, that you are a bright star.
So what you're trying to do is move through the course without ricocheting off walls or creating karma. You're trying to slide through things smoothly. How do you do that? It's called flowing. There's a technique that you can do that will allow you to touch some part of your inner being that has more knowledge than your conscious state does.
Interestingly, I haven't been speaking about the information the government doesn't want people to know about. This is going to be the first time I reveal some of this stuff. I haven't revealed it in New York yet, but that's due in December, because I have a big workshop planned there for December. We're going into a new millennium here, and it's about time we had a clue as to what's going on. Because we have been living under a lie, not only since the 1930s, way back from the beginning of the seeding of our race here. For 200,000 years, certain things, certain factors were control factors in our evolution that were not intended to be a natural part of our evolution. We have been purposely made to be focused in a three-dimensional reality system, unaware of other dimensional systems. This has been done through repression of our DNA. We have DNA potentials that our scientists don't even understand yet. But there are certain beings that have visited here for millions of years that are very well aware of our DNA capacity. And that's why they've tried to repress it and suppress it. Because we have the ability to evolve beyond what they themselves consider themselves godlike beings. Well, we have the ability to evolve into such things. We have something in our DNA still. It was a gift that was given to us millions of years ago when we were first created as a species. It's called the silicate matrix. It's a 12-strand DNA code. It's in the morphogenetic template, the electromagnetic light-sound template that our DNA and our bodies are built on. It has been unplugged and not operational for over 200,000 years. We look at our history, and what we've been taught in school has so little to do with the reality of what history truly is. We have the Darwinian concept, and there's the concepts of, we were fish and we developed flippers and then we came out of the water. And all of these really interesting concepts because we have certain things in common with certain animal species. There are reasons for that because we were crossed with them at certain times and they were crossed with us, but that didn't mean we started there. We didn't. Our race was created 560 million years ago in literally a different dimensional field than what we're in right now, a higher dimensional field. We were an immortal race. Our bodies didn't decay and die like they do now. The silicate matrix gene code is a dormant potential within every person's body. Some people have more of it than others, and they're the ones that ETs want. When we have intruder ETs coming in here to bother people right now, they go for a couple of different things. One are called stellar substrand matrices in DNA. This is not in the books yet. This is new material that's only been recently introduced in New York City. The stellar substrand matrices are extraterrestrial coding that appear in certain human gene codes. It allows them certain potentials to be taken through interdimensional portals without exploding, for instance. Because if you take certain coding, genetic coding, through a stargate, it will go into spontaneous combustion because it cannot expand on the morphogenetic level. Other gene codes are able to activate dormant coding and expand to hold the frequencies of the stargates. So when you're an invading ET race trying to covertly take over a planet, you want to create hybrids, and you want them to have the highest coding possible. So they've been trying to trace family lines, trace them to find the ones that have the highest contents of the silicate matrix within the gene codes. Not just for hybridization, but because right now, because of the time period, we're back to that, stellar activation cycle, the people that have silicate matrix, more of it in the gene code, will begin to have spontaneous DNA activation because of the new frequencies that are going to be coming through the solar light spectrum. If that DNA activates, they become multidimensional people. They become able to see fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensional frequency bands, where our little manipulators like to play games. As long as we only see 3 dimensions, they can do anything they want from the fourth or anything higher. If our silicate matrix begins to activate in our gene code, which it will, as these vortices, 7 sealed on the planet, progressively open between now and 2012, we're going to be a real problem for any force that wants to control this place, because we're going to get wise really fast. They want to try to stop the activation of the silicate matrix. We're in a time period, it's so much like science fiction, it's hard to even speak about it because we've been so conditioned to science fiction that we can't deal with science fact, most of us. We can't deal with, on a real rational level, there's this big denial thing that happens, even with the most wanting to believe of us. If you will hit a level, you go, I can't deal with this. I have to go back to my job. I have to go see what's on TV tonight. I just have to ground myself and become just normal, just part of the program, like everybody else. Because when you start to see beyond the veils of illusion that we've been living here, you start to realize the manipulation that's taking place here. Part of the manipulation is ET manipulation, always has been. We don't know about them. Why? Because they didn't want us to, that's why. They didn't want us to know where they were or how to access them, or to find out that we were being manipulated, because then they could manipulate us without any problem. We have been so lied to, it's enough to make you very, very angry. But anger isn't the only solution. It's a step in the right direction. It's the step after denial, after you get out of, I just can't deal with it. I just listen to these wackos talking about all this stuff, like they read too much, sci-fi or whatever. I never read any sci-fi, I lived it, since the time I was 4. After denial, we may hit anger and fear. After that, there's called a step that's effective action. That's where you say, okay, I'm going to learn. I'm going to find out what I need to do. I'm going to assess the situation, and I'm going to learn to handle myself accordingly, not the way I'm being programmed by the government and the media and the whole program out there. I'm going to step outside that and say, wait a minute, what are they trying to distract me from here? Our great life of what's on TV is more important than what's inside your being and your soul. This has been done on purpose. We have been cultivated to become a race that's focused out here because our power is in here. They don't want us to learn about our power. Our government doesn't, and neither do the ETs that are messing with our government.
Hey guys, Andre Hodge, 7 of Truth, Infinite Potential Healing with you once more. And coming to you from Adelaide, Australia on a grey day with no freaking crickets. So we'll see what happens. Maybe they'll kick in. I love the cricket community. I don't communicate with that language and stuff, so if you guys got something out of it, perhaps a totem, if it was random that you saw the recalibration to a new energetic reality. That's just my take on all the variables that I put together and what I was involved in. I hope you gained something from it. And hey, that bird did, obviously. I'm just calculating what I get and offering it, and inviting you to contemplate the variables that I sort of employed in that. So I had my own separate things, whether they're big scale or whatever, not, you know what I mean? I see us all as Yoda's lifting X-Wing out of this reality soup sort of thing now, alright? Whether you believe it or allow yourself to accept it or done the thoroughness and all that sort of thing. So yeah, every time I do a release like this, it's my perspective and I'm inviting you to contemplate it. You don't have to agree to it. You don't have to align to me or anything like that. By being out here, offering what I'm doing, all it is an invite, and I'm going where my information stream is taking me. I've just been looking on a quest for a long time to find what I feel is the truth, and I'm in a new sort of era. And as I've shared clips, and I might have shared some clips here and stuff like that, of perspectives of a particular teacher at this time. Whether I prove to be wrong or not, so be it. I'm out there offering it. It's incredibly hidden, and who knows what's going to happen, right? But it's just the scale and the effort and the consistency and the I've got my own abilities to tune in, and there's many variables being in doing what I'm doing, and I find it fascinating on many levels, so I've offered that, and so I've embraced certain aspects of it, and it's probably going to get a lot of polarity against me, and that's cool, alright? If you need to dismiss it, that's cool. If you associate me with it, then that's all cool, alright? But as I've said in the past, leadership isn't doing what you want to do, it's filling in the gaps that you see it, and being willing to hold the line, so to speak. So that's just where I'm at the moment. Right? So I see it quite simple, and it's very interesting because I've been through an interesting experience this week and stuff, and I went through a lot of chaos. It was really, really, really interesting. And I sort of came out of it a couple of days ago, and I had to do a lot of healing on myself, and I actually got some help. So thanks, Carlene, just for double checking me. She's got some pretty epic skills to finish off what I wasn't able to see in myself. And coming out of it, I did my own healing tech and stuff on me for many, many hours. And yeah, I managed to see the new Batman film, and I highly recommend it. It's pretty dark. It might be a little bit violent for a lot of you if you're around me and you're not into that. It's not too bad though as well. But the intensity of that and what I really enjoyed, and I like Batman because Bat I see as a shaman totem, right? And you know, the Batman Begins with Christian Bale. I love that whole journey of, especially the first one, where he was totally naive to the world and he went into the dark trenches of everything bad and stuff, and he came out a lot wiser. Like, experience is the key to wisdom, you know what I mean? So it's funny, like I'll offer you an experience thing. When I was in IT, had my IT hat on and stuff, in like between 2000 and 2010 especially, there was a lot of effort I put in and stuff, and I was very fortunate to work with some very, very good people. Like, I was pretty good. I'm definitely not the best, but I worked with some geniuses. Like in Cisco, if you know what Cisco is, there's a particular accreditation called a CCIE, which I think only about 10% of people pass, and it's like Cisco is all the connection devices around the world and stuff. And I worked with this other guy that dealt with EMC. He actually set up the Westpac Bank data center, which is the biggest bank in Australia, and he was managing that. So, you know, he's apex of what he did and stuff. And I like working with these, like going into problem solving and stuff, you know, having theory of stuff. You know, you don't know how you're going to be when you're in the scenario and stuff, right? And like, say, being a IT consultant, they paid you a lot of money to expect you to be able to perform in chaos and confusion and stuff like that. So you can be totally overwhelmed by all the variables around you and all that sort of stuff. And especially as a consultant, you go into foreign environments. Say, imagine going to different cities around the world with all the different variables. You know, all the cities have the same sort of structure, but there's uniqueness relative to the culture and all that sort of stuff. So I really relished going into different sites and seeing how quickly I could get up to speed with the design of their networks and stuff, and then dealing with the different personalities and all that sort of stuff. And it's not really... Experience is a real underrated variable, alright? And there's a lot, like getting certain IT qualifications. There was something I did called an MCSE, Microsoft Certified Software Engineer, and that was 7 exams, and it was pretty tough. I created like a lab and created all the scenarios and stuff, and if you've listened to me in the past, I went through this really insecure thing of not believing in my abilities to solve problems, and I created all the scenarios to learn how to navigate through them and find a way. So if problems came up, I was ready to go. But what I actually got to at a level before I went to a consultant, when I was just an admin, was I realized there was another way, and I could be passive to what was going on around me. And the way I was passive was back in 2003 and 4, Google started, and Google was very pure back then. And so what I learned to do is be passive to the variables around me and then interpret them and then find a way through the problem to get a resolution that everyone won. Right? So the reason why I'm saying all this is And this video, I'm going to be a bit of a brat and stuff. It's, maybe I'll call it influential frackery of the reality part 1 or something like that, or reality frackery part 1. And this I hope to offer you a lot of the variables that sort of I've had to overcome. And if you appreciate the way I offer stuff and the experiential sort of things, then I'm inviting you to empathically invest in them and just observe and see, because this reality is a very theoretical experience. There's not a lot of reference to what's going on and stuff, where by design kept in a 3D 5 cents box. Anything that goes beyond that is sort of a threat to the narrative and seeing through the stuff going on. As I've said in the past, my attitude is 25,000 years ago, effort to finally get invasion that had been going on for a very long time was ultimately successful, and we've been in an occupation state. And so a lot of the involvements that are going on here are an aspect of those who are aligned to that. And there's a chaos sort of guardian sort of thing that's been going on for a long time, and it hasn't been acknowledged and all that sort of stuff. So through my thing, it's pretty much what I'm aligned to. If that's not in agreement with you, that's cool. Right? I'm not here to force anything. I'm here, as I said, being a truth leader, just owning my experience and stuff to offer you as a variable to contemplate as an option going forth, or a variable to interrelate to, or an expansion of the community and all that sort of stuff, right? So as I said, reality frackery, right? And I may have inserted clips here and there, or broken this video up and inserted stuff, and inserted some stuff at the start and all that. That's cool. I think it's actually quite simple. It's the frackery going on is aligned to chaos and creating chaos, and yeah, there's the guardians, and then there's founder beings that are sort of, I think, stepping in now, because it's been 250 billion years of universal frackery, and we're all on a soul level and all that, been doing it for a very long time. We've been all sides and stuff, and perhaps we're a bit over it. So that's what's going on in the reality and stuff, and I find the reality quite interesting. I actually think, and this is going to be crazy for a lot of people, is that if you've seen that image relative to the contrarian view about currency trading and stuff, the reality might be putting back together when everyone's thinking it's wrong. That's usually the way it goes, and the polarity and the outrage of all the criminality and stuff is actually, to me, it's actually feeding it. And you've got this thing called the outrage mob, where there's teachers out there that are possibly feeding off it and nullifying that energy that could be motivation to growth and stuff, right? So it's quite interesting. Been contemplating a lot and gone through a lot, but right now I'm actually pretty clear, probably clearer as I've been in a long time. So it's very interesting, very interesting. So what I'll do is, I don't want to make this too long if I'm adding quite a few video clips and stuff that might be longer. I'll just get into it. I've got about, I think, depending how many I decide to actually offer, about 10 things. Some of them I might not be that great in expressing now, or some I might just cut out or whatever. Maybe it's too long. Maybe I'll break this up into 2 videos and stuff, because if I just get into my flow, I've got the mic, so I love talking now, it seems, where I used to be very quiet and neat. But yeah, we'll get into it. And the reason why I'm wanting to offer these is, I guess I'm just a variable in expressing the way I express it, I offer the data points for empathic investment to overlay yourself as to what might be going on, right? And as I've said in the past, and I might be showing the image relative to the reality in the community and stuff, there's not a lot really aligned to what I feel is the truth. There's a lot of variables out there that are actually in partnership with the chaos and distortion and all that sort of stuff. And for me, saying that, it might be ostracizing me a lot. You know what I mean? And that's cool. Alright? If I'm not a match to you sticking my head out saying that, then that's all cool. Alright? So the other thing, alright, is don't feel disempowered about what I say. Alright? Just recognize the uncertainty and the variables that might be benefiting from feeling disempowered. Just see disempowered as a ally to lack, right? And feeling inadequate and all that, when there's another state you can be, right? And it can be humble to the vastness of what we're dealing with, alright? So I like humble like the dust, and that's where I like, for me to say Crocodile Star-Lord, Wolverine, Aladdin, Dundee, it's a big thing for me to acknowledge that. So I do it publicly, and because yeah, it's interesting what goes on with highly aware beings. I was actually thinking of doing this video about the challenges of being highly aware beings in this reality, because Earth can be a small place, and we all can step on each other's toes, or we can all be affected by everyone else and stuff like that constantly. But as I said, there's definitely variables not in alignment with us, but also there's an enormous infrastructure designed to fuck with us. Pardon me. I'm using frack. If you did, there's a difference, right? Because frack comes from Babylon. Not Babylon 5. Battlestar Galactica. It's a different reality, and they use different swear words. So I don't want to offend anyone. I'm just trying to be funny as well, right? So yeah, there's this constant frackery going on, and the naivety of us as humans being through what we've been through, traumatized on the soul level for a very long time, born into reality that doesn't accept all this stuff, alright? So you have to reverse engineer it, and you probably, if you found me, alright, you've been living this shit, alright? You don't even know it, alright? So the reason why I bring up the disempowerment is drop that, alright? Because this, just instead of that, flip it and just say, fuck, I've been living all this shit and I'm still fucking here. What am I going to do from that unawareness aspect to having awareness of it and enduring it? My attitude is, once you become attuned to the mechanics of it, that can nullify it a lot. So if you have all these concepts, there's a lot more. I've just gone through the last few days of thinking about this, and if you have these as sort of, if you do astrology, you know, there's, I had the image, and I might apply it relative to the mechanics of perception, like all the variables to come up with an algorithm for perception. And if you're into astrology, it's the same thing. You got all these variables that you apply to a pattern of things. And what I found is I'm probably coming from the other side of all the variables of an individual to getting the algorithm which might be aligned to the astrology and stuff like that. So what I'm inviting you to do is use psychic defense sort of astrology mechanics to, or algorithm mechanics, to insert these into your cellular memory, alright? And to have it as a, you know, when you come to a conclusion in alignment, you get a aha moment. So maybe you'll get an energetic body aha with, if this is being played, then you can see it, all right? But the key is to be humble like the dust. And my aspect of humbleness here is, it's more than likely I've done this shit to other people as well, without me knowing it. And people have been kind and not said it, but it's also, I definitely have taken the hits, and I've said it about chips and etheric implants and stuff like that, and that's why I can do the healings and the parasympathetic sort of stuff that I do, because it took me a long time to realize the majority isn't me, sort of thing, right? And that's in the last video I said, maybe in the past I've had mechanics of 20% me still and 80% others, and I've had to reduce it to 5 because that 15%, it can actually take it on, all right, as not you, all right? So I've invited people to, you guys, to sort of do that and do it with me, all right? I'm always here for discernment and stuff. You can do it for me. Use me as a metaphor for that, all right? So I'm just going to get into it. Some of these might be really crazy advanced, and like I said, don't allow yourself to be disarmed. Be empowered by your courage to explore new data and integrate new concepts that I haven't heard anywhere else like these. And if you're out there and these are off, or you can expand on them, do it, all right? I invite you to take it further. I think awareness is paramount, and the level of fuckery going on is gone off the charts of late, and we're in a bit of a lull, but maybe it's going to go off again, because sort of beings and stuff that are going down the Phantom Matrix gurgler, they're probably going to come out with all sorts of next level escalation of shit, alright? And just be braced for it, alright? And this, I hope to empower you, not to disempower you, alright? So with that monologue intro, we'll get into it, alright? So a couple of the first ones I'll do is related to empathy, alright? And so these are experiences, perhaps mine are quite extreme, and these are also observations, because I've been very fortunate. A lot of very aware people, vastly more aware than me, have gone through stuff, and I have the ability to see the observational mechanics of it. So as I said, there's a bit of a struggle on the unawareness of actually what's me and what's not me, and what to say play a victim to, or be a perpetrator to, and all this sort of stuff. And that's all cool. Just go. What you eventually find some way is you find a sweet spot with it all. If you're willing to accept you do all the wrong first, and all this stuff is going on, yeah, you just find the sweet spot of everything. Okay, so I'll get into the first one. So this first one I call empathic defense burn throughs, alright? So psychic defense is a pretty challenging thing to even know how to employ and stuff. It's just my thing. It's just been a patch yourself up, heal, try and not let things happen again. Then you go through the repeat process, and then eventually get there and stuff. And a lot of people are clobbered by all this stuff, and you eventually get to a space where, like I talked earlier, I probably went off stream, but the Batman movie that I said, I really found it very powerful for his ability to maintain focus in the chaos and not give himself away and compromise and stuff and all that. Alright? So yeah, it's a journey to get there, but I think if you have the information to calibrate against, then you will be able to discern it a bit better, and be able to isolate things that go on. Alright? So this one, I'll just show the image. So unfortunately in this reality, and I might be getting quite dark now, it's a bit of a grey day, but the image will be there. a level or an attitude you sort of have to be able to get to maintain is know thyself, right? Know thyself isn't easy, right? And for me, knowing myself came from extensive healing. Going into hermit mode, as I've offered earlier in multidimensional method to the 3D madness, there was a references release, I think it was part 5 and 6, relative to skydiving, where you don't know what you assume, and then sanctuary space, where it's a familiar set of variable environment, and then sanctuary state, where you can take that anywhere. And they all came after extensive healing and trial and error and all that sort of stuff. So the reality is we've all got shit going on all the time, right? And we do our best, you guys in this community and stuff, to do energy hygiene and stuff like that. Probably doing your best to minimize the issues, but we all can have it, and I'm absolutely admitting I've got stuff probably all the time. But this was an experience for me, and it's a relative, and I won't get into it too much, but this was back in 2010. I actually got a hole in my back of my right leg from it. And I mean, I've never heard anyone being put into hospital from an issue from others like that, but perhaps it's happening, right? And they don't know it. We don't know all this is going on. I went through a big awareness. I was on a roller coaster ride back then and stuff, and had a huge activation not long before it, and there was some really massive family events that happened and stuff. But if you have no sort of defense and you're super empathic and stuff, and you're open to things, and you haven't learned to push things back and stuff like that, alright? It is very easy to take on board other people's stuff, and this happens a lot, alright? This is a pretty entry level stuff, but even so, alright, you get to a pretty high level, and it can happen, alright? So I speak a lot about the life force level and people and stuff, and it, to me, my metaphor of the body is I clear it out to source the nourishment from the universe, pranic energy and stuff, right? And our ability to maintain ourselves, therefore, is pretty high if we've got the abundance of energy. It's a bit of a flow, right? But people can be sent to us that are messed up. You can be in public events, state like places and stuff, and me and my traveling and stuff, had to learn to live in meditation and stuff. So I use tools like music and all that, like whether it's Tiesto cranking trance or meditative stuff, right? There's all sorts of tools and stuff, but the reality is it's abrasive, and this stuff goes on all the time. So it's not about bubble wrapping yourself and being isolated in a quarantine zone and stuff. You're going to have to develop a way to find a sweet spot of not being affected by stuff, right? And yeah, this is quite an entry level sort of thing, right? So I hope it helps. And it's not always that everyone else is the problem, blah blah blah, right? We can have a weakness in ourselves that allow this in the first place, and that's unresolved stuff, right? So that's why I'm saying know thyself, and my path has been very extensive relative to healing and that, right? So I'm not going to go into it too much. I'm just going to offer them as variables because I think it's going to be pretty dense for people anyway, all right, the information level. So the next one I'm going to talk about is what I'll just label as empathic predator insertions. This is where people actually have agendas and they can insert. All right, I'll show you the image. So as I said, I've been fortunate to deal with very aware people, right? And a lot of people don't know the scale, or they've never been acknowledged for their awareness and their talents. And I really enjoy empowering people and remind them how powerful they are, right? I don't just give it away. It's like, you know what you're doing and all that. I can just observe the mechanics of what's going on, and a lot of people, and I'm not saying you guys, but There's a lot of people out there that have talents, right, and they don't know it. They don't know what's going on, and so empathy can just definitely be used against this. And I use the word predator. It can be a bit too much. I think there's a lot of people, like say if it's a woman that's very empathic, because women are very, aware generally, and guys aren't. So guys might be running with thoughts and sort of agendas, but it's not deliberate in their projection and insertion sort of thing, right? So it can just happen, right? But there are people out there, women as well, that know how to play the game and get what they want and manipulate, alright? So it's all cool. There's all these variables going on, alright? But just say, I think there's a big variable that people don't know if they're empathic, that they can actually be gaining stuff that actually isn't theirs and in overlaying it with themselves, alright? And then, alright, they do the bidding of other people without knowing it, alright? So relationships are quite interesting and stuff like that. You know what I mean? There's boundaries are quite hard and stuff, and to discern in the multidimensional level in a world that doesn't accept it. Alright? So I'm just suggesting that you don't know where you get to somewhere sometimes. It's like, and you're doing stuff for other people, and it's like WTF, right? What the frack is going on? So it can be in the reality, the frequencies amp up and they amp up our talents and stuff. We don't even know we're riding it, alright? And so, this is just one thing that can happen, alright? This is where know thyself and be top of your game. You know what isn't you, so you can splice it away and not leave and allow it into your field, alright? So the third one is shadow self. And this is pretty epic, alright? Might not have heard this. And the image, I'm getting a bit dark and I'm going to have to get through these pretty quick. But the images should be pretty clear. And I've said about my path, Michael Designing's been a big aspect of it, and I really learned and appreciated and greatly explored the concept of the shadow self back in 2009. It was something pretty early on, alright? But say from the Ashiana stuff and understanding the Babylon massacre, I can't really say for certain that's the time that it was sort of done. But from her perspective, the shadow self is just an insert program that we've just accepted, right? The Babylon massacre sort of instead of a lot of stuff that we just because it's 5,000 years ago or whatever, we just by default accept, right? So I've just done a simple mechanics here, alright? But say in my journey, and if you appreciate trauma a lot, and the consciousness, how it works, the way the shadow works is, say if you've been through a rape or abuse and all that, something really heavy, alright, it can be almost impossible to deal with it on a day-to-day with it in your mind and stuff, okay? And so the genius of our consciousness as it is, alright, and our body is, it can go into an aspect of our conscious, and I might be showing the shadow self diagram, where it goes behind the ego and the ego protects it, alright? And it can be in there, and so the metaphor of the colon is the body absorbs the shit, like the data of the shit in our colon, alright? And we can have trouble accepting it, alright? And it's for our own protection, okay? So there is a logical and reasonable mechanics relative to trauma and issues and getting through the day and all that, alright, just to deal with life. But so we can all have stuff that we're not willing to face, that we put in the back burner, that is there to potentially be dealt with, right? But this level of mechanics is offering that. I like to do that, and I was always am thorough relative to that mechanics, that there's always shit that I'm not really willing to face, that it's like a multidimensional muscle training where you are proactive, and you can use it as a, because like when you deal with psychic defense, if you can control the shit that you can control and master, it means the stuff that you can't determine or control is easier to deal with. Alright? So I've always raised the bar on that, and I enjoy raising the bar, and you get bored and stuff and you can do it. Alright? But what this mechanics is about is that there's a potential that that's an insert and it's not actually from us, and it's actually a part of the Phantom Matrix insert to bog us down with shit. Alright? So you can be exploring the shadow and resolving the shadow constantly, and there's always more stuff and you just wonder where it comes from. If you're dealing with past life stuff, then that's also another aspect and all that. It's a multidimensional courageous path to go. But the whole concept of a shadow, if we've got awareness, it's not needed, okay? So all that I'm sort of offering in a potential here as a aspect of the interference fuckery, reality fuckery, is that the shadow isn't actually ours as well. So there can be inserts that bog us down that aren't ours, that we can, if you go that far a path, that interferes with our journey. So we've got an open portal vulnerability that we don't even comprehend. Alright? So I invite you to contemplate that. So we'll see how we go. It's getting quite dark. I might start it the next day. So this next one, part 4, is external agents of chaos. Alright? So if you can see this, we can have our life issues and all that sort of stuff, right? And we can be pushing them back to keep ourselves clear, not getting bogged down on stuff, right? There can also be narrative sort of inserts and like data out there that can influence the stuff, and then there can be weaponized stuff. And if I've included the clip relative to remote influences and all that sort of stuff, there's definitely agents of chaos out there, alright? So there can be AIs and all that sort of stuff. If you don't believe that, then that's cool. It's just a variable that can be out there that, you know, in our own awareness, it might be affecting us, okay? So what it can do is just bog us down, target us, require extra energy demands and stuff like that, alright? And it's designed to deplete us, to wear us down, alright? And our energy gets grinded down, and then our defenses get down, and then programs and all sorts of stuff can get inserted, alright? And information is definitely weaponized, alright? And I might be including a clip relative to the TV series Homeland. It was very interesting. I rewatched that just recently, and there's some really, in the later seasons, I think 5 and 6 and stuff, there was information warfare and light fusion centers and stuff relative to that. So there's you know, if you're interacting on social media and stuff, there can be agents that are doing stuff deliberately to mess us up and all that. But this goes way beyond that. This can be energetic and all that sort of stuff, so it can influence people around us to bog us down and then just grind us down, alright? So it's another thing. So there can be information and, as I said, chaos inserts, alright, to make us go nuts and stuff like that, alright? So it can be difficult to pull yourself out of this sort of stuff and not know what's going on, and have allies that can help and pull you out and stuff, alright? So yeah, that's just another variable out there, alright? I'm doing a quite simple overview, but just consider there are external agents of chaos, alright, that aren't even, we don't even have a relationship to. They can be just pure third parties out there, alright? This image might be a bit hard to see, but this next one is highly aware polarity broadcast tech, alright? And this is what I found with very, very aware people. And this is quite hard to really know what goes on, because I've dealt with quite a few people, and just being in my field, it can clear this stuff, alright? And I know a lot of people wanted to be in my field in the past to clear it, and I'm very aware of it. a lot of aware people don't know that this is going on. So apologies, it's dark and stuff. The image is quite bad, but I've got the image next to me. All right, I'm going to try and get through these pretty quick. What can happen is if you've gotten through a lot of this shit, all right, this frackery, you can get to a very advanced level, all right, and you can be quite peerless, all right. A lot of you guys are very peerless, okay. And then what can happen is this stuff can get inserted into you, all right. And then what happens is your allies and stuff, family members and all that, they can get polarized against you, and it doesn't matter what you do, they always find the wrong relative to what you're doing. It's another level of thing. So if you've got sort of know thyself under control, you've got awareness going, you're probably contributing and, you know, healer level and stuff like that. This stuff can be then done, and it can be hard to clear yourself of it and that, alright? And I'm just fortunate I've got some tech and all these variables and stuff, and perhaps this is going on, alright? This has been my life. But yeah, it's stuff that goes on, alright? And it's very hard to isolate, and you might need help to deal with this, and just a third party and stuff, alright? So I've had allies say their children have been polarized and they don't listen, you know what I mean? Like, most of us are very true and authentic and pure, and it's just, it doesn't add up the way people work or operate, and they can have issues, and I've shown that in the past where they don't listen, alright? But it can be something in us as well, alright? And it's a third party that's probably doing it, because we're all mapped out and aware and stuff, alright? So the next one, it's getting a bit dark, so I might round it off, because the other ones might be really cool to be clear and see, alright? So, dormant high vibe distortion tech, alright? So I've been into groups and stuff, and I've sort of mentioned this before. And I do activate people's gifts and stuff like that, dormant talents and that, when the timing is right. And I don't really do it in public like I used to do. It's far too dangerous and vulnerable and stuff, and I've really had to force to control my construct into interacting with people. That's why I'm very thorough in vetting and stuff like that, alright? And because this sort of scenario can happen. And it was, one example was many years ago, I went to a consciousness group gathering and stuff, and I was very half-hearted about going. But I went, and someone was there, and for whatever reason I was engaged into an activation sort of thing, right? So I'm not going to get into the mechanics of that, it just seems to happen, and I know what to do and all that, and my energy field is very protective, so this was a rare instance and all that. But in that highly aware sort of group, if you've explored them, then the people can be actually the most toxic as well, and they're drawn there, and everyone's finding a way, and they're trying to find their way through things and stuff, and not everyone intentionally means to do whatever they do and all that. Everyone is potentially in humanity a victim and stuff, right? What happened is there's one individual that wanted my attention, and I wasn't allowing it, and then I found someone and I was interacting with them, and it triggered all this stuff. And then what happened is this other person had something in them that when it went very high frequency, it was high frequency nullification tech that just really attacked me in the third eye to distort and prevent the activation going on. So it's like a sleeper agent that are amongst the community, that when this sort of stuff happens, they get activated and derail it all, alright? So yeah, what I might do is round it out now and do a separate recording in another day, but this is a start, and I hope you gain something from it, and I might just contemplate things further and then add more to them, alright? So thanks for being here, and I'll see you another day and another recording, alright, when it's probably lighter. Enjoy. Hey guys, I thought I'd do just a little bit of a round out for this. What I'm going to do is definitely break this up into two parts. This first part, the ones I've offered so far are a bit more of an entry level sort of thing. If that is entry for you, it might be a bit complex, and the contemplation of these sort of things might be new territory, but and as I said at the start, it might be very disarming, the fact that this stuff is a potential out there and we all have to endure it every day. But in saying that, just realize you're still here, you're still aware, right? A lot of people get caught up in it and they're not willing to even contemplate these concepts, all right? So just see how much of an ally it is that, in spite of all that shit, all right? If I show you a diagram, I haven't showed this for a while, but just see the metaphor of all I'm saying in these particular releases, because I think I'm going to do 3. I might just now thought of a third one of how I've found a way to negate them all and stuff, right? But just see there's this reality pushback, right? And I think there's a lot of technology out there that is so aware of us, right? You have to learn to cloak yourself and be undercover, and yeah, just accept that the reality does not want us to have awareness, all right? But then, like I said, there was a sweet spot and you can get above it. And so my avenue has always been extreme thoroughness. I get on everyone's table. I'm even a guinea pig for a lot of people and they don't know it. I do clear a lot of healers and stuff when I'm healing, and that's cool, but my attitude is I'm here to anchor the region or the world and stuff like that as a guardian, hollow earth guardian, founder being sort of thing. And so I know how to clear myself and stuff. Sometimes I need some help in that. And I did mention early on, I did get Carleen to double check me, Carleen Tamick, and I thank you, Carleen. Had some interesting things called J-seals and stuff, and it's Anunnaki bullshit, right? And I'll get into that in the second part because I've had a couple of very visceral experiences with that now. So yeah, just see, I've used the metaphor of like a plane going through the sound barrier. There's a lot of resistance, but when it gets through, it's very smooth sailing. So instead of being, you can get to a proactive mode to try and overcome this metaphor I'm showing you here, but then you can be reactive to things and you're very sensitive. And I've got the metaphor down the bottom of the life force where it can be very demanding if you have an absence of life force to manage your defense, because your body processes get grinded down and your life force has to be allocated to resource allocation rather than the perpetual sort of nature of defense. Whereas when you do have an abundance, so your body, I know, so if I do get hit, I can feel my energy bodies. If I don't need anything more than just sort of meditation and stuff or listen to music, if I get into usually like the Schumann resonance, that's where I've done infinite potential healing and stuff. You get into that heartbeat of earth frequency mode. It's very nourishing despite all this reality. That's what a lot of the EMF sort of stuff is done, just to keep us off that. Because to me, healing is very simple. The apparatus to negate that is very extensive and huge investment and stuff, and they've got to constantly reinvent and change the reality to match our expansion. Right? So I know in me I've got self-healing, and so all of this stuff, and one of the things I've done is over the past is actually go into really, pardon my language, fracked up situations to break myself, to keep putting myself back together, alright? And see how quick I can do it. You know, I've mentioned in the past, like, you get tired, and jet lag is one thing I have to watch out for. I know it. But say I do get very tired and I go into a risky situation to test me, because the tests don't come when things are comfortable. The tests come when at the worst moment. And the system knows it, alright? So you got to be able to endure everything no matter what. And if you need help, you need help. But there's a lot of things out there that can actually be an ally, and they're not actually too hard. You just got to be a bit disciplined and stuff. And my main thing, right, I absolutely love the foundational things, like the basics, people mastery of the basics, because my attitude is you master the basics and you chip away at the conscious Tetris, then the byproduct is gifts and all that sort of stuff. If people, like, a lot of people go for, they've got an agenda to get to something or do something and stuff, and seem like it's impressive, but if you do that stuff on a house of cards, and you fall, and a lot of, say, the compromise things I've said before in here, you become that, alright, and then you can affect people, alright. So I'll just show you one of the images I showed before. Highly aware polarity broadcast tech. So if you got some of the basics down pat, you know, this might be a next level stuff that you don't know can be done to you. And it can be a bit hard. It's like getting something on your back and you can't see it, metaphor. With the pattern of way people operate around you, right? And you know, everyone's your friend when they can get something from you, and then when you need help, it's a bit like the Bourne Identity, Jason Bourne movie, where he's in the train station, all the cameras turn away. Like, you can get isolated and stuff like that, and I know this has happened to quite a few and stuff, and I know how to negate it and that. And when people are in trouble, I don't run away, I actually dive in. But I'm just being very careful now. My vetting process is raising the bar even more and stuff, and my presence can cause some interesting things to happen, and yeah, I'm committing to what I'm doing and what I'm saying about, and the Phantom Matrix and all that sort of stuff, and to me this is the algorithm I've come up with all the variables added and all the species messing with us and stuff like that, alright? So I'm just going to do a short outro here. I didn't want to get too long. This video has been quite long. The next part will be some of the more complex ones, and my rationale for offering this is it's just data, right? It's data to add to your algorithm of perception, alright? These are all just data points of potential influences and stuff that are going on, and just a simple awareness might be all you need to negate stuff that's impacted you before. One of the interesting battlegrounds is supermarkets. You know, a lot of people after the lockdowns and all that sort of stuff, they were quite the only place where people could go, so there was a lot of energy and stuff, and interacting with people, and the narrative has been very influential over the last couple of years, and it's a great tool to see and observe people, what they accept to be true and all this sort of stuff. And yeah, the actual ability for people to detect the truth is quite fascinating. Seems like truth isn't a variable that people live by too much, and that's cool. It's just something I choose to live by. I think it's a reference, and it's a very defensive thing to accept, and even accept other people's truths that aren't aligned with yours. My first principle of existence is, how am I wrong in this moment? Because I know the majority of issues that happen with people and stuff, and divisions with all sorts of scales of society and whatever, the inability to see yourself as wrong, right? What's behind that, right? That's interesting. But yeah, I thank you for being here. I hope you gained something from this. I'll look to get the second one done. Sorry about being dark, and I just had a bit of a listen to the other one, and there's crickets there again, which is interesting. They joined the party, and what I'm going to do is leave with about a 15-minute clip of Ashiana Dean again. It's a really cool overview. It's from a lecture where she, or a workshop where she shifted the gears. It was October 2001. All right. So a lot of this stuff I'm showing is 20 to 25 years old. All right. And if I got around to doing sort of some of the influences at the start or in between, it's a really rich period where she was just letting it rip, and I find her the best teacher I've ever come across by an absolute mile. And I'm just having a chat to a few of my allies and stuff, just laughing, like how it's been 10 years that I missed it, but I know what I was on doing. And here's a funny out. My ally Captain Marvel found this. I haven't found the clip or anything, but she'd been going through a lot of it as well, because she's had to a lot of the body energy mechanics she actually had to innately gestate herself to endure what she's been through, and then she's listening to it and it's like, holy shit, someone's actually mechanicalizing what I innately learnt to do, and it's amplifying her strength and focus in it, and confirmation. Not that she needs confirmation, not that say I do and stuff, or many of you guys need to, but it's actually very it's nice to get a confirmation of what you're doing, you know what I mean, a validation in certain respects, because most of you guys are probably out there and no one can validate you, what you do, all right? One of the funny things she found, and this is to all you women out there that have interesting cycles and stuff. she told me, you know what, like, fucking women's periods, like the Anunnaki set it up, we're only meant to have one, like a cycle once every 3 years and stuff, and they're the bastards that inserted it into us like once every month, all right? So all you women that have tough cycles and stuff, all right, fucking blame the Anunnaki. It's all their fucking fault, all right? These bastards, all right, that are messing with us and that people are totally unaware of. So just saying that, allow yourself to be open to what might not be true, what we accept as true. Be willing to adjust what you accept as reality and all that, and possibility. It's a really amazing time. The information is awesome. The internet's a lot different than what it was when I started 10 years ago on this sort of thing and that, but it's still an awesome ally. And thank you for finding me. Thank you for exploring, and thank you for enduring all this sort of shit and all the ones that I'm gonna offer, because you've probably been through it, you don't know. So I hope you gain some visceral sort of confirmations of stuff you've been through, some stuff that's been affecting you, and stuff that's you got to be on guard all the time, right? So thank you guys, lots of love again, and I appreciate your courage to contemplate what I'm offering, and I hope you really get a lot from this clip. See you next time. Andre out.
So what we need to do with it. I'm going to go through these pretty quick as far as the rest of who's who. Okay. We had the Draconian and Reptilian team primarily on the other page, and then we got introduced to the Necromaton and Dramies, who are like the brains behind the brawn. Now we're going to go into some of the other collectives. These collectives at this point have all unified themselves into what's called the United Resistance. Resistance refers to resistance to the Founders and the Emerald Covenant. So they are races that are representing what is considered an anti-Christos agenda, because the Christos agenda, Christos is always what it originally meant, was referring to the D12 pre-matter divine blueprint that allows you to connect your frequencies to the primal light fields and primal sound fields and source. So you have an endless eternal supply of energy, so you have eternal life and ascension and all those kind of things. They're just like natural things that are supposed to come with a package. So, but the other guys won't teach you that because they cut it off, usually at D9, some of them at D11. So literally when you're dealing with training that comes from any of these other matrices, the highest they will allow your energies to go will be to be 11.5. Now these are the real shrewd ones that are trying to figure out how to run a partial D12 current on a reverse matrix, and this is what some of the Melchizedeks are doing, because they have enough knowledge about the sacred sciences. They have more than the Dracs do, that they're trying to run it on. In fact, they used the mutated version of the Fibonacci spiral to begin running it on a reverse current. They can't run a whole D12 on reverse because it'll automatically put itself back if you run anything more than the 6 sub-frequency band in D12. Every frequency, every dimensional frequency band has 12 sub-frequency bands within it. So what the negative groups are doing is they're trying to run on a reverse current, which means the natural scalar wave patterns and their sequences for every little dimension and every little subharmonic in the dimension. They're trying to reverse the way the fire letters work so they can break the current off at the D12 level. So they can use as much of that life force current as they can get, but they do not have to plug it in to source, so they don't have to learn to be cooperative with the other races. They want to be gods themselves and create their own little matrix, and if anything doesn't agree with them, they kill it. And it's basically their orientation. Now, the other races that are involved with the Phantom Matrix, these are races that at various different times in their evolution, since the creation of Phantom Matrix in 250 billion years ago, at different times, some of these races are older than human races. They're not older than the founders, but they're older than human races. Their planets have ended up in the Phantom Matrix, or their race has ended up on a planet in the Phantom Matrix. Now, all of these guys that are considered fallen angelics are from that Phantom Matrix black hole subtime distortion system. All right, some of them have escaped at different times and actually are like in density 2 of this time matrix. They have civilizations and cultures there, but most of the places that they come from are the Phantom, because they can't live in this time matrix too long because their bodies start to deteriorate because it runs on the right current and it's too strong of a current for their mutated reverse current bodies. So most of them have their primary bases, even though they can visit and pop in here on any of the densities. They live in that time distortion system. It reminds me of an episode of Star Trek or something. A long time ago, I saw one thing where it was Star Trek Next Generation, I think, because I remember Captain Picard in it. There was this one scene where something had happened and they'd gone through some type of time warp. And they ended up with, like, the way they filmed it, where they showed, like, there was a version of him, of Captain Picard, stuck over in this other thing that looked just like the system he was in, but it operated different. And he was over here stuck, and they were both stuck. It's like he got split in half, and half of him was in this sub-time cycle that was distorted, and they're trying to figure out how to get them back together without having the whole thing explode, which was their problem on that show. But it's kind of like that, where if you could see it, it literally looks like this other version of this universe that's a bit different, but enough similarities because it's built on the same original pattern, where literally we keep each other stuck in time because we can't fully evolve while we have an open connection to them. They're trying to suck energy from us to literally suck this system in, and we're trying to pull away from that so we don't get sucked into the system, because eventually that system will implode. That's the difference between a living time matrix and what's considered a dead matrix or a black hole matrix. If a black hole matrix doesn't have all of the matter that fell into it pulled back out and reassembled into its original divine blueprint, eventually it will keep pulling energy in from whatever it's connected to, and if it becomes where it's not connected to any live energy system that it can feed off of, it starts to feed off of itself, and it literally starts to consume its own energy and break up its own patterns where it implodes. So like the life forms, the body forms are like holograms that eventually, if you don't suck energy off a living force, like a living life force that has its natural currents, its Maharata current and its primal light and sound field currents, if you're in a submatrix like that one that can't access those higher eternal currents, you literally, the systems implode, and the planets will eventually implode, and they go back to literally space dust. And that's what they have to look forward to. They call it ascension. Well, the only way they can stay alive in their eternal finite bodies is by vampiring energy off living systems. So this is what we're dealing with when we deal with the phantom matrix. Earth became involved with this 5.5 million years ago. It was the end of human seeding 1 on this planet. Human seeding 1 started on Earth 25 million years ago, on parallel Earth 250 million years ago. Now, 25 million years ago, seeding 1 came here, and we were to repair the grids on planet Earth. So far, Earth didn't have its equivalent in phantom matrix. There was a huge, massive war that took place then, where other wormholes that are different than these that have been closed since were created, and part of Earth's grids literally got siphoned into the black hole matrix. Now, in order to try to assist the life forms, the humans and the Anunnaki and the Draconians, that ended up on that Earth in that matrix, so they didn't just shut them off so they could never get out again. The founders created something called a wall in time. It was a frequency barrier between Earth's grids here in this time matrix and the grids of the portions of Earth that had gone into the phantom. They could have severed those grids where there would not have been a connection anymore. But the people and the beings and the consciousness in the part of Earth's body that had gone into phantom would be in on a finite implosion cycle where eventually you couldn't rescue it. It would go down in frequency too far where you couldn't plug it back in. So they kept a wall in time, a frequency barrier, to allow those two places to still be open to each other, but not like an open door without a lock on it. Because the risk in doing this was that the other phantom matrix systems there with the fallen angelics would, if they could get through that wall in time, they could invade here. And that's exactly what has happened. Now, the wall in time is 5.5 million years old. This is why with some of the Templar Melchizedek teachings, there's another little clue about their teachings. Most of them can't access anything before 5.5 million years ago. They say, gee, there's this like block in the planetary memory banks, and you can't find any information on history before that. Yeah, right? Well, if your consciousness is running on a reverse matrix and all you can draw information from is the phantom side, you won't be able to go past that block in time. So I know one of the very popular Melchizedek teachers talks about the wall in time that you can hardly get any information back on the other side of. That's because they're coming from the phantom matrix location. Now, various times in seeding 1 and seeding 2, there was the wars over, making rips in the wall in time and things trying to come through. This has been an ongoing mess. In Atlantis, in the third seeding, it got really bad. That's where the 2 wormholes that are the major problem that we're having right now were created. The races that we're dealing with, there are a lot of them. It's not just cut and dry like, okay, you're the good guys and we're the bad guys, this kind of thing. It's not like that. There are all sorts of races with all sorts of agendas, but they still come in 2 basic categories. Ones that are working the Christos agenda from the living time matrix, and those that are working the anti-Christos agenda from the fallen time matrix. Now, the ones in the fallen time matrix, there's a lot of them that want to get out. They've evolved enough by raiding here, they've gotten themselves into human bodies here, but they started to pick up some of what that means. So they started to grow more than the ones that they came out of in the first place. So they started to rebel against their overlords and things that were in the Phantom Matrix. They didn't want to just be the little puppet soldiers that were going to be used to destroy this place. They decided they wanted to do what the humans were doing. They wanted to get a redemption contract. They wanted to get their DNA healed so they didn't have to be dragged around by the fallen angelics anymore. It was like fallen angelics, imagine yourself as a big avatar collective saying, okay, I'm going to make like 50 million of myself in this race form down here, and then I'm going to make them do what I want them to do. Well, the ones down here become conscious, but they don't remember the whole, just like it's hard for us to fully know that, our avatar's up there someplace. And they got tired that once they realized they were being run around like little puppets, like, a child playing with dolls. The doll got tired of being a puppet. The puppet got tired of having the strings pulled, and they decided that there was a better way and they wanted to live peacefully. So there are a lot of them, just because they originated from there, doesn't mean that they're going to get sealed back up in there when it comes time for the Christos realignment here. That's why right now, this is the big rush. Talk about lines waiting to get to, like, how you go into a bank and you have, like, huge lines on Fridays sometimes. You should see the line over on the Phantom side for the ones who want to come over, that they're willing to do anything, because they know it's going to be a permanent sever this time. It was decided in 22,326 BC that the critical mass over there had reached too much mass compared to here, and that they had to close the wall in time completely. They had to sever the two planetary fields, because if they didn't, this whole matrix and the other density levels of it were going to get sucked in. That's when all hell broke loose, literally, because you have fallen angelics over there that, well, they don't want to be nice. They want to be able to still do their dominion campaigns and raid things and work with Antichristos ideas, but they also don't want to be sealed off in their own time matrix where all they have to feed on is themselves. So they have been trying to prevent the Christos realignment mission here, because they are confronted with a very black and white choice. You either stay in the phantom matrix, and you know what that means. You'll evolve. You might even have another 1 billion years to evolve in there. But that's it. Once that system starts to implode, you're with it. You go back to space dust. You're still part of God, because God is literally the energy and consciousness field that all of this is taking place within. So you can't be separate from God. But to be able to evolve enough to remember and have the mastery level of mastering of density, where you can come and go as you want to and have freedom, those kind of things come with evolving and ascending through the full matrix. If you implode, you go back to square one, where you're space dust, where something else is going to use you, what you used to be, as just raw units of consciousness to form other things. So they're being faced with a very difficult choice. It's kind of like, either be nice, and if you be nice, here's the Emerald Covenant. Enter a redemption contract, you get DNA bioregenesis that will allow you to hold the frequencies of the living matrix, and you will progressively learn to lose some of your bad manners that you've been using, because they have some atrocious ways of looking at other life forms. Exploit, vampire energy off it, gimme, gimme, gimme. That is what their whole consciousness is oriented toward, because they feel cut off from their own life force currents, because they are. So they have to feed off other things. So everything they do, the mentality is all about that. If you look at how our societies are built, it's scary. When you look at the business world, particularly American style, there's something real scary about what that's turned into. Once upon a time, it was built on at least an idea that sounded good, like people were going to kind of, everybody was going to be able to try to have the American dream of a nice life and be able to have money and things. At this point, it's cutthroat. It's whoever you have to step on to get where you want to get the power you want to get. This is coming from the mentality set that comes from a life field, wherever it is, a life field that does not feel its living currents, connecting it to source. It will feel fear, a very deep primordial fear of its own finite nature, and it will try to compensate for that fear by acquiring power from outside of itself, because it feels powerless inside of itself. So the mentality and the horrible ideas and lack of ethical systems that consciousness like that comes up with all goes down to a very deep core pain of feeling finite and feeling that if you don't take, that the universe is finite, the universe is limited, there is not enough energy for you, there's not enough power, you have to grab it from somebody. This is where their whole competitive dominion thing comes from. They could be healed, but to try to convince them of that, it's like, good luck. They've been trying to convince them for 250 billion years, and they're still choosing. They're choosing, most of them, the overlord ones, the dark avatar groups, they are choosing to stay in that condition. But when some of them incarnate, and then they get that individuality thing happening, where, the avatar's up here, but now it has its little foot soldier. The foot soldier still has a bit of free will, and the avatar will try to drag it around and try to say, no, you don't have free will. You're just a face of me. You have to listen to me. But once the being gets out here, it's like a part of it wants to have its own consciousness. It doesn't say, okay, I'm just you. It doesn't identify with that way, and that's why they're rebelling. So this is why there has been, with the hybrid races that I've talked about, the Leviathan races, one of the reasons that the fallen angelics made a big deal about coming in here and getting everybody's DNA messed up wasn't just to suppress the humans. It was because all of their Leviathan races, who used to be incarnates out of their matrix that agreed to be Antichristos, got here, started to evolve, and decided they didn't want to be Antichristos anymore. And they were all petitioning for Emerald Covenant and wanted to get out and get away from the Phantom Matrix and their overlords. And that's when the overlords realized they were losing their energy feeding ground, that they were losing their foot soldiers, and they were losing their access to Earth and the potential of getting to the halls of Amente. So they went after them as well. This is why I have a lot of compassion. I do feel compassion for the Illuminati races, because they may do really icky things here, and they do. Some of them don't do anything icky. They don't even realize they're a part of that. But others do know to some degree they're a part of stuff that's not being fair to other people. But they don't know any better. But these races came out of lines of Illuminati that didn't want to be Illuminati anymore. that were trying to break free. And because of that, it was like the great axe from the Phantom Matrix came down and they messed with the DNA so they would be able to continue to manipulate them. So it's like the bad guys that really, really decided they wanted to be good guys and were siding with the good guys and trying to get away from them, but they got dragged back in because of it. So this is why I feel a compassion. I try to teach that don't hold our hostility. If we feel anger, there'll be a point where rage comes up. That's healthy. You just don't let it stay there. You know, you have to move it into something more positive. But it's not the Illuminati that are to blame. Who is to blame for the mess here are these guys, these various groups. But if you want to blame them, yeah, it's their fault, but why is it their fault? Because they got code convolution way, way back a long time ago that twisted their DNA and their minds up in knots. And it made them very sick mentally, very intelligent, some of them, but still psychotic. Now, are you going to hate a person because they're psychotic? It's kind of useless. That's why I try to say, when we get into these races, let's find enough compassion to realize if there are ones that want to come over, if there are ones that are interested in the material, you might not trust them as far as you can see them, because you have to be careful with that. Because a lot of times they'll get the urge down here that, okay, I want to be good, I'm going to do the right thing. And then if they have field attachments, the other thing they're connected to will come in, get itself in position as somebody you trust and, like, in a situation where you trust, and then the other thing will come in and try to sabotage you. I've had that happen a lot. A couple workshops I've had that happen and those kind of things. So it's a real precarious game, and there's a lot of game players. When I talk about the possibility of field possession, all these guys you're seeing on these lists are potential candidates for who might be living in there. So it's not just cut and dry. Okay, is it a lizard or is it an Anunnaki? There's a lot of them. Now we have some.
Take my hand and fly away with me, over mountains and seas, far away from the pain, to a place where we're all free, as we fly together, you and me. We will build a new world, still believing in love. I know that we will be
John Lilly once put it this way: there are no limits at all to the human mind whatsoever, except those we impose on ourselves because of our beliefs. And those limits are also beliefs to be transcended. And that's a view that suggests that the possibilities of human transformation are virtually infinite. And we have no way of knowing the outer horizon of what it means to be human.
And really, to understand all this, everything, you have to go very, very deep into a study of history, consciousness, neurophysiology, everything. You have to be the supreme eclectic type of leaning, and you really have to be wanting to know who you are and what everything's about.
And the thing that you'll find when you go to sacred sites, if you're very humble about it, is that you are on a personal journey, and the sacred site will respond to you in a way that is appropriate only to you. The information is always what you are searching for. And it's the intent you give that energy that defines whether it is used for right action or not. And it is inside these sacred spaces that you will be reminded that you are a god, that you are a bright star.
So what you're trying to do is move through the course without ricocheting off walls or creating karma. You're trying to slide through things smoothly. How do you do that? It's called flowing. There's a technique that you can do that will allow you to touch some part of your inner being that has more knowledge than your conscious state does.